What is an emergency savings fund and how to build one? Hi there, my name is Tito and I want to talk to you really quickly about how to build an emergency savings fund. Now, an emergency savings fund, in my opinion, is money that you set aside to take care of emergencies when they arise. Now, it's essentially different from your normal savings, which is money that you set aside for your future. Now, here are some kinds of emergencies that this fund could be used for. When you run out of money in your regular day-to-day account and you're completely broke, or when a family member or a close friend have a medical emergency that requires urgent attention, or perhaps when a close friend or family member needs a large sum of money and you feel they're good for it and they'll surely pay you back real soon, or when you come across a really great investment opportunity that you can't afford to pass up on, that's another good time to dip into the emergency fund. Or when urgent home repairs are needed. The difference between your savings and an emergency fund. So for me, the difference between an emergency fund and your savings is that an emergency fund is for just that, emergencies, like break glass in case of emergency type things. It's like a last resort, something that you don't use very often. Another way that your emergency fund can be different from your savings is that your emergency fund can be capped at a certain amount. Like, I can cap my emergency fund at maybe like 250,000 naira, whereas I can choose to leave my savings open-ended. I can grow it as much as I want. Now, what cap or what limit you want to set on your emergency fund is entirely up to you, or even if you want to set a limit on it at all. How to build an emergency fund. Now, the first thing you want to do is to have a special place where you put your emergency fund. Now, this could be a piggy bank, or if you're like me, a tin can, or a savings account, or maybe all three. Now, what I do is that I have a tin can on top of my fridge where I put 411 naira in every day. The idea is that if I'm consistent with this every day for a year, by the end of the year, I'll have 150,015 naira as my emergency fund. Alternatively, you could decide to just put in a week's worth of savings into the piggy bank once a week if you feel like doing it daily may be a bit too tedious and cumbersome. The keys to successfully building an emergency savings fund are discipline and consistency. Knowing that life is full of surprises and that it's best to be prepared for them will help motivate you to build your emergency savings fund. Here's a pro tip. If at the end of the year you reach your target for your emergency savings fund and there are actually no emergencies throughout the year, you could take that money and invest it so that it grows even more. And at the beginning of the year, you can just decide to start growing or building a fresh emergency fund from scratch. Your emergency fund should be easily accessible. Having quick access to it is crucial for when it's urgently needed.